Welcome to this video about the responsibilities you carry as a scientist when applying citizen science. We will discuss the General Data Protection Regulation, data and result ownership, copyright tips, data management, and health and safety of volunteers. First, when you work with volunteers, you often process personal data, and that means you must comply with GDPR. When discussing GDPR, I like to quote Snowden. It is sometimes difficult to be happy when you suddenly must comply to all these laborious and small regulations to ensure privacy of people that might not even care about it themselves. However, in the end, you should make sure that you ensure the right for privacy for all the citizens that work with you. We hope to add understanding on how valuing research compliance and ethics and incorporating these well into your research design is one of the things that will make you a good researcher, especially when implementing citizen science. Of course, there is also a lot of citizen science that is essentially anonymous. Think of the crowdsourcing we discussed in the second lesson, or when collecting data doesn't require them to add personal data. If you then indeed process the personal data of European Union citizens or residents, then the GDPR applies to you even if you're not in the EU. The GDPR also applies if the researcher and research institution are located in the European Union or European Economic Area, and the citizen is located outside of the Union or area. The General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, is the toughest privacy and security law in the world. Personal data is in any information that relates to an individual who can be directly or indirectly identified. Names and email addresses are obviously personal data, but also location information like GPS or addresses, ethnicity, marital status, gender, biometric data, religious beliefs, web cookies, pictures, and political opinions can also be personal data. People sometimes do not realize that indirect identification can be arrived at by combining information that is not personal data. We focus on this regulation because we have experienced that in practice these regulations are often hard to account for. It is therefore good to understand the protection and accountability principles behind them. Watch the animation to get a deeper understanding. There are also researchers obstructed slightly by GDPR to apply citizen science and open science. Especially in health research, this is more difficult since you are handling much sensitive personal data and the citizen scientists are often also the data subject. In the supplementary materials, you can find a booklet where scientists and practitioners share these challenges. That is why we would like to share some simple steps to follow so you can ensure to comply to GDPR. Watch the animation and see what you can do. The citizen scientist may have rights, such as intellectual property rights on the data he or she processed or collected. And what about the final resulting outcomes? Will you be able to share everything? Make sure you settle issues concerning possible rights on the data to be collected and or processed at a very early stage of your research project, also to manage the expectations of the citizen scientists. Decide about data exploitation explicitly and answer the following questions together. Who is allowed to use the data? Can the data be made publicly available? How will the final results be shared? And what if the collected and or processed data is protected by any intellectual property rights, such as copyrights, database rights, and more? Who has these rights? Note that specific types of data may be governed by specific laws and regulations, and make sure you have checked this in advance. You also must deal with copyright issues in citizen science project. To enable you to do this in a correct manner, here are some tips. First, consider what kind of photos, images, and drawings you will need from citizens. In case you want to publish and the contributions from the citizens is original, the citizens' work is protected by the so-called copyright law. They therefore become copyright holders. Want to share their work in any other way? you will need to check the Creative Commons license. And finally, you need to know whether they agree with the license you will use. Ask permission to share, or you will need written transfers of copyrights. For most of these cases applies, however, if you need help, make sure to contact a copyright team within your own university or outside to advise you. Often, the factors affecting data quality are explained within research papers. As explained in the previous lesson, these factors are extra elaborate and important to point out in citizen science research. However, such explanations are not always documented in metadata accompanying the primary raw and processed datasets used in the research. And if they are documented, it is rarely in structured, standardized formats. For secondary users of data to be able to assess fitness for use, they must be able to efficiently filter, sort, and select particular datasets that satisfy the quality criteria for their purpose. To accomplish this, you should therefore ensure the metadata describes the quality aspects of the data as comprehensively as possible in a structured, standardized format, including its provenance, treatment, constraints, and biases. Furthermore, the datasets and results should be, at least partly, visible or available for the participating citizen scientists in a manner that is easily accessible and understandable for them. Here you need to try and view the content from their perspective. They might not need all the details or elaborate explanations, but are perhaps more interested in what it means for them or in practice. Of course, think of what is possible. If the data is extremely sensitive or includes personal data, you might not be able to share or visualize it for all of them. When you consider the different types of visualization, ensure it makes the data and information easier to process. For environmental data, a map with data points and graphs over time is insightful. For other subjects, a booklet or a cartoon of what is happening might be the best way to share. In the supplementary materials, we shared several examples that we consider best practice. And last but not least, when working with volunteers, you become responsible for their health and safety. There are risks involved in doing research with citizens, which you should map out according to impact and probability. Think of making safety regulations to which volunteers should comply, children that need supervision, so you ensure to take this along in your design. Make a risk assessment for locations that the volunteer will be working at or safety estimations for their activities. And ask for input from your HREC committee if you are unsure about matters of health and safety of the volunteers. Please investigate the supplementary material and get inspired.